Hello and happy Friday, everyone. Thank you for joining us this evening for a very special guest expert interview. Today, I am happy to share with you Susana Sierra, who does a lot of things. We'll talk more about her bio shortly and what she does. But Susana was actually my own self-care coach. I worked with her for quite a few months, and I had a different experience working with her. So I'm so excited to share with you all what her perspective on self-care is, how she dealt with burnout personally for herself, and I'll even share little tidbits of what I discovered while I was working with Susana. So welcome, Susana.
Thank you for having me. Thank you so much. This is exciting. This is my first official interview, so thank you for having me.
I love encouraging folks just like yourself, Susana, who are doing good work in the world. So this is so exciting for me as well. If you're joining us live, welcome. My name is Jen. If you're new to my page here, I am a holistic health coach. I also help women show up confidently in their business through leveraging speaking as a business model or as a way to connect with their clients. So I do a lot of things, but I also host monthly guest experts here on my page, Waitlist. If you haven't liked my page, make sure to give it a like and say hi. Let us know where you're joining us from. I know Susana's out in Florida. I'm here in Minnesota. So let us know in the comments if you're joining us, where you're joining us from, so we can say hi back. A small little administrative note. StreamYard is the service I use to do this live stream. So if you are wanting to comment and share and ask questions of Susana, we encourage you to do so. But please give StreamYard your permission so that I can see your name and acknowledge you as you're commenting. We don't need to remain nameless here. We're all friends. So let's go ahead and interact and engage since you're watching this anyway. And we appreciate you being here. Now, this is special today because usually we go live on Friday mornings, but Susana is available tonight. So thank you so much. I'm going to give the short bio of Susana, and then we'll dive right into burnout-proof self-care strategies for anyone.
Yes.
Anyone who's joining us. So super excited to jump in. Susana Sierra is a trained certified holistic coach, self-care strategist, burnout coach, guided self-care retreat facilitator, and healthcare professional for 20 years as a medical social worker. She takes her personal journey from recovering from chronic burnout to balanced giving and living, and uses it to help others to develop a personalized self-care practice using practical tools and strategies. She integrates personal experience along with years of teaching, and those teachings include positive psychology, mindfulness practice, and holistic coaching to focus on the whole person, which you all know, if you've been listening to me, that is totally my focus as well. So we vibe on a lot of different levels here. She's the owner of Sierra Life Coaching, LLC, which is a business with a heart for healthcare professional women and a mission to overcome the overwhelm and prevent burnout by making self-care a priority. Welcome, Susana.
Thank you for having me. How exciting.
Yeah. Well, one of the things I wanted to highlight, because you're just like this powerhouse of a woman. Aww. And when I say that, I mean, you are so like educated. Like I am just blown away about all the things and teachings and trainings you've done. For example, you have a bachelor's degree, you have a master's in social work. And you just shared with me briefly that you're also pursuing additional licensure. Yes. You're just like going as far as you can go within your field. So I'm just curious, when did you decide to add coaching to your toolbox?
Well, that's an interesting, first of all, I love the question. And it's an interesting journey because it wasn't a straight road for me of, oh, look, coaching, I'm going to just add it to my toolbox. It actually started back in 2000 when I had an opportunity. Well, first, let me back up. So there was a 10-year gap between getting my bachelor's and my master's. So there was a lot of life lived in, a lot of experiences, a lot of hard times, and some good through those 10 years. And so I quickly learned after getting my bachelor's and trying to live life, have a job, that bachelor's doesn't pay. So So I ended up going to work for a corporate company, a medical equipment company, a very popular one, a very well-known one, Siemens Medical. And they gave me the opportunity. I moved up the ladder fairly quickly, and I was given an opportunity to go see Tony Robbins for a one-day seminar. And I believe that was when he really was getting out there as a coach. And, you know, what I remember from the experience is how I felt leaving it. And that has carried throughout my years. And so, you know, just like Maya Angelou says, you know, you people will remember how you make them feel, not so much what you've done for them. And so that's what I felt coming through Tony Robbins' seminar, was that he made me feel empowered. He made me feel like I could believe in myself and conquer anything, and which is probably why I keep going. So after a couple of years, I ran into another coach, Rhonda Britton, who had a very popular show, Starting Over, and where she brought in women and helped coach them through, but also bringing in different other experts like psychologists and, you know, other life coaches. So I felt like through the journey, through the road, I kept getting these signals of, you know, you should be a coach. And then, you know, it wasn't until I finally decided to go back to get my master's, and I went to a conference, and I'm at the book section, and there's a book called Value-Based Coaching by a social worker. And so what did I do? I called Marilyn Edelson, the social work coach. And I had a wonderful, you know, couple sessions with her. And she motivated me to go ahead and pursue coaching, even though I was a social worker. And I took a certification, an online certification, one that I could afford. And I was ready to go. That was in 14. And fear stopped me. It was just like, well, you're not ready. You need more time. You need more experience. And it wasn't until COVID hit recently, a year ago, in March last year, that I decided that I wasn't going to let another birthday pass me by, because my birthday is this month. I wasn't going to let another birthday pass by without me pursuing my dream of being a life coach. And I did that. And then shortly after, I met Bev Sartain, who was our mutual coach. And so that's where I'm at now. A year later, I'm a life coach, burnout strategist, and all of that good stuff.
Interesting. And I love that you share that your journey was maybe extended, or maybe didn't, and it wasn't as short as you had anticipated when you initially took this path.
No.
And you've met a lot of mentors along the way, which must have been a very exciting experience.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been a wonderful experience. A lot of learning.
For sure.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just curious. I know your focus is on self-care, and honestly, having been in the coaching industry for a while, you don't run across a lot of self-care strategists or coaches. You might run across mindset coaches or confidence coaches, not often self-care coaches. So how do you personally define self-care?
Yeah. Self-care for me really hits at the core of who I am, and has kind of evolved for me. And if you look up self-care online, you're going to see thousands and thousands of, you know, articles and information on what it is and how to do it. And but I decided that it was something that I had to take very personal, and create what it was for me. And what I define it as being is basically it's an intentional and meaningful activities that you consistently do to primarily meet your daily needs, your mind, body, spiritual needs. And that when you continue to repeat those activities, you are forming habits that will then sustain you with a balanced, a balanced well-being and a balanced life. So I encourage my clients to really define what self-care is for them, because, you know, what I see it as, my perception of self-care can be totally different than anyone else. And so that's why I focus on self-care, because I feel like there's so much information out there and it really can get overwhelming, especially if you are in burnout. So, it's like, well, where do I begin? So that's why I decided that no matter how, popular the word self-care is right now, because it is, I'm still going to stick to my guns and decide that this is where I need to stay, to be able to support anyone who needs a support when it comes to self-care.
Awesome. And I love that you mentioned that self-care to you is very personal. And I felt that myself when I was working with you. In fact, that was one of my ahas, was on paper, my self-care was great. Like, I have rituals I do all the time. Pandemic kind of threw me for a loop, as it did for many of the people, who are listening or that we work with. It was tough, but I always thought, on paper, I'm doing the things that typically fall under self-care, like journaling and meditation and those types of things, exercise. Those are the things that I was doing, but I was still not feeling fulfilled. And so, some people might be like, well, self-care is I get a monthly massage, or self-care is I buy myself flowers every Sunday. Like, it could be totally different from one person to the other. Yeah. And that's okay. Right. But I think at the end of the day, it has to have some sort of meaning for you.
Yeah. Yes. And that's why I include meaning and intention, because it's really about creating a way to, it's really a mindset, so you're really looking at, what do you need for the moment? And is it relaxation? Is it, some activities, some outdoor activities? Is it family time? So it really is something that you are creating for yourself every day, even. And that's what I talk about, in my strategies in regards to retreating.
Yeah. And I can't wait to get into retreats, because that's something that I think that you do a really good job of sharing a different perspective on retreats than at least I've experienced before. Before we jump into that, though, you mentioned that self-care is really difficult when we're going through burnout. And I know one of the big questions I had before I started working with you was, how do we even know if we're in burnout? And I know you have some personal experiences with burnout. Can you share a little bit about how burnout showed up for you?
Yeah. So when we talk about burnout, what we're really talking about is stress, right? How much stress we can carry in this body form, in mind, body, spirit. And it really was something that was a gradual uptick for me. It was just like, it started somewhere, and then it just got worse and worse. So that's why I call it chronic burnout for me, because it was not just one incident, it was several. And for me, so as a social worker, you're much like, you're walking into fire. You're walking into stressful environments consistently and constantly. And so my first experience with burnout was working with hospice. So my first job right out of my master's program was with hospice. And that's, dealing with death and dying, end of life, chronic illness, terminal illness. And I loved it. So I go in to all of my jobs with sort of this superhero cape, I love Wonder Woman. So you go in and you want to just help, and you want to, be the answer, or at least give some answers. So hospice, although it was a wonderful, rewarding experience for me, became just that environment where I was just perpetually going into stressful situations. And I ended up having several very difficult client situations that led me to compassion fatigue. So compassion fatigue is burnout, but for caregivers who can no longer take care or do their job because of the work that they're doing. And so in this case, I needed to step away from the job. And so again, I just I would leave jobs because I knew I was just taking it to, the stress was just too much for me. And so much like a fireman has to wear protective gear, and then when I think about burnout, I think burn proof, right? So you need protective gear, you need the skills. So I had the skills walking into all of my jobs, but I didn't have the protective gear. And the protective gear for me is self-care. Okay, so building on a self-care practice for you is how you become burnout proof. And so what I've learned throughout my years of experiencing burnout, and before I share, the learnings, my last break was in an environment, was in the hospital system, when I was working long hours. It's a trigger. Long hours is a trigger. Overworked, politics at work, things that, you're not feeling supported. And the list goes on of things that contribute to burnout. And it was a day where, it started showing up for me in panic attacks. So I started having panic attacks in the grocery store. I remember one day calling my husband. I'm in aisle such and such, and I can't move. And, I don't know what to do. And it was because my mind was in this panic, and it was fear-based. And so he had to walk me through, okay, just leave your cart and just walk outside. And that's how I got through that panic attack. Another couple incidences was in my car. So for burnout to show up at the extent where where it's almost costing your life, that's when you know that there's something that has to give and you have to change something. And so that's when I decided that I was going to go on a research hunt on what is going on with me. And hence, this is how Burnout Prevention Program came up for me with the help of Bev. So yeah, that's essentially what my story has been. It was a gradual, every job was, was a wonderful, my tendency was to go in and just do a great job, but I wasn't really taking good care of myself. And then it would end up in burnout.
Well, thank you for sharing. And that must have been quite the experience to get to a place where you experienced so much stress from your job that you just up and quit and said, I just have to move on to another job. And I'm hearing and seeing some of this in, the pandemic, Zoom fatigue kind of world we're in, like where people are working longer hours, people are not taking breaks, people are ditching their normal routines and habits, like maybe they're not exercising as much because they're just mentally stressed and don't have the energy. So I think I'm hearing and seeing a lot of these types of situations coming up for people where they are at risk of burnout, even if it's not in a career way. For you, it showed up in your jobs. More particularly, I think for other people, it could show up within their household. It could show up within their relationships. Yeah. And I know you talk about a model of different areas of your life. Can you briefly talk over the different areas of your life that could be experiencing this then?
Yeah, so one of the tools that I use is a circle of perspective. And when you're looking at 6 areas of your life, career, relationships, spirituality, finance, and well-being, and health. And we look together at those 6 areas and how self-care, how you practice self-care in those 6 areas, or even how burnout's showing up in those 6 areas. And then that's how we develop, a program just for you. That's why I say it's very unique to each person, because each person's experience is different.
Yeah. Thank you. And I found that perspective very helpful, because I think we get really good at siloing our different areas of life. And that's why holistic coaching was appealing to me as well as you, I'm sure, because we know that we can't just silo and compartmentalize all the time. Like these different areas fill into the other areas and can create ripple effects there. And I know, like, our tendency when we feel overwhelmed or perhaps on the verge of burnout is to just retreat, right? To leave, to get out of the situation, whatever that looks like.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the surprising things I learned after working with you, Susana, is that retreat doesn't necessarily mean you like book a vacation getaway somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Retreat might be a different type of experience. You can even create a retreat without going anywhere. So in what ways do you help your clients with this idea of retreat, not necessarily meaning you hop on a flight somewhere?
Yeah. So this is something that I have the most fun with, is retreating, because it's so many things. So for me, retreat is a mindset, so I know that if you were to say, well, I wish I was, I think you sent me something about in the cabin somewhere, just, a couple of days in the cabin. And so what about getting a couple of days in the mountains in the cabin would you enjoy? So is it time out in nature? Is it, having a nice cup of coffee out in the morning? Is it reading a good book? Those three things you can do right at home. All you have to do is put in your do not disturb sign, check in with family, say, I am out for 3 hours in the patio in nature, having my cup of coffee with a good book. So that's why I say it's really a mindset, and it's really a decision on you taking the time to connect with things that you enjoy. And that's one of the steps that I talk to people about, is to my clients about, is really honing in on what you enjoy in life. Writing down your favorites, writing down, using all of your senses to capture what you like. Is it some favorite food that you enjoy a lot? And so then you make a day of it. I think, I hope I can share this, but one of our sessions, we talked about going to the Target and having a retreat moment by stopping and getting some latte and, maybe listening to some good music in the car before you go into Target. So it's really just creating a ritual, something that you really can just connect and have a nice time. So it's not always about spending money, going to a hotel, a spa, and all of that, although that is something I encourage.
Yeah, so it's kind of funny, like just today, or it was yesterday, I actually booked myself a solo retreat next week in the middle of the week, because I'm just like, I'm reaching a point where I'm like, I know, I'm like, I need to get away. And that's one of the things we also talked about is, for me, part of retreat is actually having alone time. And when you're in a house 24/7 with your family and nobody can go anywhere, that opportunity is perhaps not as there for you. So I took the steps to do that. And that's not an easy thing to do, because, there are logistics. You got to figure out who does what and where. Yeah. And so it's not easy, but it's definitely a worthwhile thing. And I love that you expand on retreat as what is the part of it that really rejuvenates you or fills you up, and can you mimic that without spending $1,000 to go to wherever, to a beach somewhere where you may not even want to travel right now, but you can certainly mimic that experience. So I love that you share that perspective.
Yeah. And I'll share another really interesting perspective. I was going to share it during the 5 strategies. So I'm going to share one strategy that I talk about, and that is, of course, to retreat. In positive psychology, there's a theory. It's called the 3-to-1 positivity ratio. And so, pardon me, but I am going to read. So, the positivity psychology shares that there's a research that suggests that there is an optimal balance of positive to negative emotions. Okay, so what we want to do when we create a retreat is, and not even a retreat, a self-care practice, is to think about how do we increase the positivity, the emotions that we're feeling throughout the day, more than the negative emotions that we're having. So what they're saying is that the 3-to-1 ratio, it allows you to encourage and trigger mental well-being, right? So we need 3 times as much positive emotion as negative emotion in order to flourish. they have found that the frequency, so I'm talking now about frequency, which is why I recommend retreating daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, and annually. So daily, it could be an hour. Weekly, it could be, a half a day or 2 hours. Monthly, it could be a whole day. Quarterly, it could be a 3-day, but it's consistent and it's upping the frequency of your retreating, which is creating, and the whole purpose of it is to create positive emotions for you. And that ultimately affects everything, your chemistry, your emotions, your thoughts. And so I found this fascinating, and this is why I delve deeper into retreats, because I almost, I just feel like this is there's something here. And daily now I'm thinking 3 to 1, so how many negative emotions am I feeling versus positive? And that's experiences. And so if I'm having a bad morning, I'm like, okay, I'm going to my car listening to music and drinking a latte, so that I can balance it out. So I just found that to be extremely interesting with when it comes to the retreat concept.
For sure. And I mean, how many women are like, how can a Target run and a latte with cool music in the car be a retreat? But you're sharing with us that it can be. And it's part of the mindset of embracing it as such, because maybe that's what we can do for our daily or weekly practice, or even monthly, depending on what you're experiencing right now. But there might be an even bigger win for you where you can retreat in a different way that's perhaps more tapping into that positive in a different way with this similar type of rituals. So thank you for sharing that. Now, I know you wanted to dive into your self-care strategies. You came up with about 5 of them, and you just mentioned the retreat piece of it, which I think was number 4. I don't know if these are in any particular order, but without further ado, go ahead and jump into these burnout-proof self-care strategies so we can figure out how to make this work for ourselves.
Well, I'm excited to share them. So the first one, this is okay. So each strategy for me is important, but each of them are also challenging. And I think in the times that I've been meeting in my time with my clients, they can get stuck in any one of these. And so it's important that they're not just a list of 5. They really are a strategy that needs to be worked. Okay, so the first one is you. You are the strategy. You are part of the first strategy. You are the one that's experiencing, for example, the burnout. You are the one that's experiencing the stress environment. And so you are the only one that can change that. Okay, so sometimes it's hard for people to understand that they can leave an environment. They can actually leave their job. So I know it's easier said than done. And that's why I encourage getting support if that's not an option for you. Certainly there are other things, and I'll talk about that, that you can do, because if it is a job-related stressor that's gotten you to that point, then it's important for you to take a look at it. And so what I'm asking for you as a first strategy is to really look within, figuring out what's happening with you, and recognizing whether or not you are in burnout, or whether you were just, teetering on it, or whether you are at the point where you're severely in burnout and probably can't even walk in the door tomorrow. So it's really just about you, and you are the only one that can take you out of that. Okay.
By the way, for those who are listening, if you suspect you're experiencing some level of burnout or on the verge of getting there, do not hesitate to reach out to people like Susana, who can help you with that, to a coach, a friend, a mentor, a support person. Reach out, because you don't know if you don't ask. You don't know if you don't reach out.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And there's definitely a lot of hotlines and things that you can get support out there if you are experiencing, the severe burnout. So The second strategy is body check. And what I mean by that is sometimes we hold stress in different parts of our bodies. We might feel tense. We might feel, just the anxiety, chest pain. If it's chest pain, go to the ER. So I ask everyone to really do a list of symptoms. Go down from head to toe, just like if you were to go to the doctor, and write down what it is you're experiencing. Are you having trouble sleeping? Are you having trouble just getting up in the morning and trying to get things done? Are you losing focus more often? So when was the last time you went to the doctor? When was the last time you've got lab work done? Many of us walk around with vitamin deficiencies, and that's why we're feeling so terrible. And when you can just take a vitamin, right? So you won't know that if you don't go to the doctors regularly. So that's one of the things that I encourage on my clients. I know you're going through a lot, but go to the doctor, get your labs done, study your labs, and ask questions. That's something that I had to do because I did find out after I had that crash and burn, my last experience with burnout, I had to go to the doctor, and I found out that my thyroid levels were completely off. And they had to increase my thyroid medications, and I had to sleep more. I wasn't sleeping. I had to drink water, so those are all things you have to figure out. And then I also had a vitamin D deficiency. So after doing all of that work, that's when I started to feel better. And taking care of myself. And I realized that self-care was going to be the number one thing I focused on now, when I went back to work. And so if they asked me to work overtime, no, I'm sorry. Again, it's just knowing your boundaries, knowing, what you're willing to sacrifice. And sometimes you can't sacrifice your life for a job.
Very well said. And I think it's interesting that you say that your body has symptoms, and it might be showing you some of those symptoms. Mm-hmm. And I think the tendency in many women especially is just to say, oh, it's okay, it'll get better. Nobody's sleeping right now, whatever, it'll go away over time, or I just got to ignore it for now. Mm-hmm. But as you mentioned, there could be something deeper going on there. Of course, if you struggle with sleep a few times a week, that's one thing. If you can't sleep every single night, then that's a different thing. So your body is talking to you. Mm-hmm. And even if you don't know how to interpret what it's saying, it's mm-hmm. probably giving you some indications that something is not right.
Right. Yeah. And that's one of the things that I encourage is to do a body check-in with yourself in the mornings, just to kind of see how you're feeling. And just kind of track it, because sometimes that information is going to help your doctor really give you a better evaluation. So I remember going into my doctor's office with 2 pages worth of symptoms, and she was like, what in the world? No, yes, we're going to talk about all of these. And so she did, so hopefully you have a good doctor that will be that patient.
Well, way to do your homework. I'm very impressed. I don't think I've ever brought in pages of documentation to my doctor before.
I have at times brought my computer and say, well, I saw this article. They don't like me. It's all right. But they don't, it is what you have to do what you have to do. You have to be your own advocate. As a social worker, I am a proponent of being an advocate. So be your own advocate, right? Yes. So third one is journal. Okay, there is not enough I could say about journaling. I've journaled all my life. Sometimes they make no sense whatsoever, but it's a way for me to release, and I encourage people to release. Okay, you cannot keep bottling things up and thinking you're going to be okay. You're not. So, so words are powerful. Writing them down, even if all you could muster up is ugh, and sometimes I do say ugh, what the heck is happening? So I I make it a ritual. Journals for me are like fun time at Barnes and Nobles because I love picking out the covers and, ones that speak to me. So if you're that type of person, then I encourage you to do that. But journaling is a way to connect with your spirit. So we're mind, body, spirit, right? So connecting all of those are so important. And it gives you answers to what you may be going through. Or it may just allow you to release the stress that you're holding on to. So that's journaling is a number 3.
Since you're a big journal fanatic, if I may share that, for those people who don't journal right now or don't know how to journal to deal with stress, what are some like dummies guide to what do you journal about? Like if you've never journaled before or you don't have a practice of it, what would you suggest people start with?
Yeah. So I actually wrote out a little example journal entry. So let me just say this. For people who are not really into writing, I actually met a client recently that was like, I'm not really into writing. I write smiley faces if I'm feeling happy. I write sad faces if I feel sad, angry face if I feel angry. And that's how I track my emotions throughout the day. And that's definitely something that you can do if that is what you're tracking and kind of keeping tabs on. But you could also use collaging and, just using images to help you express what you're feeling. So, if you have a couple magazines laying out, you could also do that as a way of expressing. But really words are in essence, it's really putting what you're thinking out on paper so that you can actually look at it in all sides, right? Kind of just really look at what's standing out for you. And then you can determine whether or not you need to do something about what you wrote. So an example that I wrote is, so I usually open my journals with Dear God, or I can say, dear friend. And again, the friend is you. You are your own best friend. So, and if you're not, then work on that. Dear friend, I feel so much pain in my neck right now, and I had a terrible night's sleep. I kept tossing and turning, and I had mom on my mind, and she was telling me about the doctor's appointment that's coming up, and so maybe I went to sleep with that on my mind, and that's why I'm so stressed. And let's see, I have so much to do today, but I'm feeling a bit tired. Maybe I'll take it easy today and cut my to-do list short. What I guess I could do is take an Advil and do something like stretching, exercise. Ooh, but what I really need is a massage. I have not had a massage in a while, and I think what I'll do is schedule a massage this month. So in my journal, as I'm rambling those words, right? It does. So you sit down and you're basically just anything that comes to your mind. Start with your body. I feel blah, 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 right? I feel sick. I feel, my stomach hurts. I feel a headache. And then, go from, what your day is going to be like. Oh, I have so much to do. Or maybe you had a dream and I dreamt this. Why am I dreaming that? So whatever really comes to your mind. And so what I ended up doing with that entry is saying, my intention is to relax. I need to relax. I feel tense, so I'm going to relax today. I'm going to do a self-care massage. So I'm going to, take some essential oils and I'm going to massage my neck after shower. And then I'm going to call my massage therapist and book a massage this month. And then I'm going to call mom to say hello. So I only chose 3 things as my self-care activities. And that's kind of what I encourage people to do, is to just choose 3, maybe 4 activities that you want to fit in your day as self-care. And just basically that's it. And so by that, one little, few sentences that you wrote in the morning, you figured out what you were going to do for the day to keep your, to practice self-care.
Awesome. So I think that's a really great example of You don't have to like do creative writing. You don't have to be a poet. You don't have to, but if you just kind of talk through your body check, you talk through your day, you talk through some experiences you've had, you talk through how you're feeling or things that are on your mind. That's a great example of, I think they call it free association writing or open association, something that just whatever's on your mind.
Something. They call it a lot.
Yeah, there's a lot of different words for that, but that takes the pressure off, I think, because many of us do these running monologues of our day anyway, but we're doing it in our head instead of putting it on paper. So there is power in words. You know, I'm a speaker, so of course that's going to be something that I'm going to stand behind 100%. But yeah, there's power in writing your words down as well. So thank you for sharing that example, because I think that made it more concrete.
Yeah, and that gives me an idea for a workshop.
Yay!
Maybe we could do it together.
Yeah, why not? And by the way, I know we talked about retreat. We're going to wrap up in the next 5 minutes or so. So you mentioned that the fourth strategy is retreat, which is a state of mind and something that you have to talk to Susana about, because she's got some really cool things that she's brewing, and we'll talk about that. But the fifth self-care strategy is
repeat. Repeat 1, 2, 3, and 4 consistently. That's it. And and like I said, these aren't easy. Sometimes, even for me, when I first started, it wasn't easy for me to get away by myself. That was a challenge, because I was, always doing things with my husband, and it was like, so it was uncomfortable, but I started to do it and I got used to it. And I learned that it was beneficial for me to get away alone and enjoy things by myself. So so they're not easy, but if you need support, like I said, I'm there. If you would like to meet with me and just do a discovery call, a free coaching call, and we can at least start the process for you. And I have some offerings.
Yes, I wanted to share that with you. So if you're listening tonight or watching the replay, definitely make sure to say hi. But even more than that, if you're seeing and hearing some things within today's conversation that are really resonating with you, I highly encourage you to take advantage of some of Susana is offering quite a few, bountiful gifts for you today. So go ahead and let us know, Susana, what it is you're sharing with people who are watching today.
So, certainly, I want to make sure that anyone that feels a sense of burnout or is, just not sure, that you could take a free burnout assessment in mindtools.com. We'll probably put the link in the comments.
Yes,
but that is it's a free assessment, and you can determine, you can kind of gauge where you are at in burnout. And if you are open and willing to talk to me about that, then we can make that our first coaching call. It's a free coaching call, 45 minutes. And so that is one of my offerings. And you can certainly go to sierralifecoaching.com and schedule an appointment there, or you can just send me an email at Susana@sierralifecoaching. And then the second thing is, I do have a free holistic self-care motivation group on Facebook. And so if you're interested in that, I can send you an invitation. And then there is a bonus coming up. I'm working on a video tutorial of my one-page self-care retreat planner. And it's a one-page guide on how you can create your retreat experiences all on your own. And so I'll be working on that soon and sending it out. If you send me an email, I will certainly send that to you as soon as it's available.
Wonderful. I'm just noting these things down so that folks who are watching see them in the comments. These are all very generous offers, and Susana is really good at what she does.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, definitely take advantage. Even if you're not in a place to work with her, that's totally okay. One of the things that we love to do as coaches is provide education, training, and resources that will help you regardless of whether you can invest in coaching. So I know that's where she approaches it. When she and I first connected, I wasn't sure if I was going to work with her. So even if you're not certain what that might look like, these are free resources that she is providing to support you. So, again, if you hear yourself in what we've talked about today, or you suspect you're at a place where you need support, it is a form of self-love and self-care for you to seek out that support and take whatever that next step looks like for you. And I'm posting Susana's links in the comments below. So feel free to book a free call with her, 45-minute call on her website. I'll also pop her email in the comments. If you email her, not only do you get the opportunity to do discovery call with her, but as she said, she has a special self-care retreat planner that she will send to you if you want to reach out to her directly. So these are definitely amazing resources that I highly encourage anyone to share. Before we wrap up tonight, Susana, is there one thing you would like to leave people with in terms of how to protect ourselves, like how to put on that what did you say, the protective cover?
Protective gear.
Protective gear, yeah.
Fire, yes.
Exactly. What would perhaps be like the best protective gear for someone who's just like, I'm not sure, I'm not feeling good, but I don't know.
What I could say, and wholeheartedly, I do this because I love it. I do this because I feel there are a lot of people out there that were just like me, who were in the fire, who were in burnout mode and didn't know where to go and for a way out. And so this is why I am here. And it is, just like you said, to provide the education, the information, and the resources, but also the support. So find the team, the care, the people that you can be surrounded by to get the support you need in order to get out of the fire. And that is ultimately one of the major things. But also take action. Sometimes when you're in burnout, you feel like it's the stress response. You either fight, flight, or freeze. So if you were to look for somebody that if someone's in the fire, you're going to want them to get out and they're going to want to get out. So it's important that you determine where you are in this burnout phase, if you are, or overwhelmed, and find a way to get out, meaning taking action.
Awesome. Well, thank you. It has been a special treat tonight. And I do want to share with you who are, perhaps you didn't catch us live or you caught only part of the interview. Feel free to rewind and watch the rest of the interview. This replay and this video will be streaming on my page here at Waitlist. So it's available to you for the rest of the weekend. If you have 40 minutes or so to watch the entire interview, she's provided gold nuggets for us today, and it's something that can sustain us over time. So even if it's not something that applies to you today, it's something you can keep watching over the weekend. But I'll take the video down after that point. So watch it before Monday, and then stay tuned for next month, where I'm going to be featuring another guest expert, one of my previous coaches. I'm a big believer in coaching. Obviously, I've worked with a lot of coaches, but this was my previous mindset coach named Jen Alley, and she has some great work around alignment. So that will happen on I have a note of it here, May 5th at 9 a.m. Central Time. My next guest expert interview will be happening. So don't forget to join us, like my page so that you get notified. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, Susana.
Thanks, Jen, for having me. This is great. Thank you.
Have a good night.
Thank you. Have a good night.